right, Laisha, we're looking at your ISO. We're going to start off looking at these technically, and you're at ISO 800 for all of your images. You just bump it up to 1000 for one of them. Your aperture, you keep the same at f5, and you're adjusting your shutter speed. Now, in general, if someone had turned in a series of images all shot with the same aperture, I would see that as a downside of the images. I would see that as a lack of creativity. But the way that you are approaching your subject, you kind of want the consistency. That's part of what we want to achieve with these images. As we're looking at the different body parts, we also want the consistency of the blue background, and having that similar depth of field for all of them seems like an intentional choice. It doesn't seem like a lazy choice that I would see with other students when their subjects are all varied, but here it seems like a really intentional choice that you've made to keep consistency throughout your series. As I look through each of your images and I'm looking at the focus, that focus, because of the depth of field being the same, is pretty shallow, and it's guiding me through your images. So here you're really close to your subject and we just have this area in focus. Here we kind of fall out of focus on the side, and then we are more in focus as we move towards her belly button. Here, this part of the arm is out of focus, but the top is in focus. The ears in focus. Here the back's in focus, and then the top of her head starts to fall out of focus. This whole image is in focus. Here, the focus is over here, so it's not quite where you expect it to be, and it challenges me as the viewer to move through the image more completely. The light in your images is pretty consistent as well. It looks like you're shooting with the same type of light, and it's more informational lighting. It's not lighting that's creating a lot of depth to your images, but it's more straight on lighting that's flattening it out a little bit and making it look, letting us see the detail, but allowing it to be more informational. Now, if you wanted it to show more depth to your subject, or if you wanted to emphasize, let's say on the back, if you wanted to emphasize the side of her arm, in her shoulder here, and in her shoulder muscle there, and the crease of her back along her spine there. Or if you wanted the light to come in and emphasize the collarbone and the divot kind of that we have here, right? Then you would want the light to come in from the side instead of straight on. So looking at the color of the blue and the lighting that you've used, my first instinct was that these did have sort of a like crime scene sort of view to them, like something had happened to this person, and then we're going through and we're looking at the different parts. We're documenting what's happening to her because of the way that the light's hitting. And it's funny that that's how your subject felt as well. I think that has to do with the lighting as well as that blue background that has sort of a clinical feel to it. So that makes the images all feel very cohesive in that sense. And it just allows us to look at each individual subject, each arm, each stomach, everything, and examine it for the details. The strongest images that you have, I think, are your first image and the sixth image. Here, where we're not seeing any of the blue when you're getting really close to your subject, it feels really intimate. It feels like we're invited into private space. This image is also working really well because you're kind of cropping in on the edges and making us have this intimate view of your subject. Overall, your series is very cohesive. Your closest images, I think, are your strongest images. You're kind of guiding us through this woman's body, and I think it's done in a really beautiful way. There is a clinical side to it that I am very interested in. I just want to make sure that is your intent as you're photographing. Nice job with this final project. I don't see any technical issues. I don't see any issues with cohesion. The colors really coming through in all of them. This image would have fallen off if we're looking at the contact sheet because of the color. But other than that, I think you did a really great job with this.